Lapland was covered by glaciers for most of the Paleolithic and early Mesolithic, and only in the late Mesolithic it started to be populated by people. There were two migrations to Lapland, one coming from the eastern hunter-gatherers of Karelia and one from Scandinavian hunter gatherers. By the late Mesolithic, there is evidence of boat building and fishing in Lapland. At this time the younger Dryas event was at its peak and glaciers were melting. Some online articles will claim that the first hunter-gatherers of Lapland were Finno-Ugrian, or that they practiced reindeer herding. Now that is a load of bull. Excavations of Eastern hunter-gatherers and Scandinavian hunter-gatherers find no evidence of reindeer herding, and they could not possibly speak a Uralic language because the Uralic migration to Europe only had occurred in the Iron Age. That is pretty much an indisputable fact. The Uralic haplogroup N is also not native to Europe. Eastern hunter-gatherers and Scandinavian hunter-gatherers of Lapland carried haplogroups R1a and I. By the Neolithic, the Eastern hunter-gatherers have sort of replaced the remnants of Scandinavian HGs in Lapland. Lapland was continuously inhabited by EHG type of people from the Neolithic until the Copper Age, when Indo-European genes started spreading up north into Finland. The Corded Ware horizon touched Finland, but not Lapland. The thing is, Corded Ware ancestry is present in Levanluhta, the Proto-Saami-substrate. The ethnogenesis of the Sami people does not take place in Lapland, rather it takes place in southern Finland. Samis were displaced further north by migrating Finns in antiquity. In the Iron Age, the Ymiakhtakh culture of Siberia starts to make its way into Lapland. Most likely the tradition of reindeer herding that I mentioned earlier comes from them. When analyzing the Iron Age Levanluhta sample, we can see that it's not entirely Mesolithic hunter-gatherer in origin. In fact, roughly half of its ancestry is of Corded Ware, specifically Baralak's origin. As seen by Iron Age Levanluhta, the Siberian blood had already entered the gene pool of Fennoscandian populations by the Iron Age. Interestingly, the Siberian blood in Levanluhta seems to be Krasnoyarsk derived rather than Ymiakhtakh derived. This means that most likely the Finno-Ugrian speakers developed in central Siberia and not in the north, far polar region. However, the reindeer herding tradition likely came from Ymiakhtakh, so this would suggest that the spread of reindeer herding is not connected to the spread of Uralic languages. In antiquity, Finno-Ugrians from the south of Finland were heading north and absorbing the reindeer herding substrate that was left in the Kola Peninsula. By the Middle Ages, the Finns and the Sami had already been two very distinct groups, and the Finns were continuously pushing the Sami further north into Lapland from central northern Finland. Sami historically inhabited not only Lapland, but they also spread over into much of modern-day Sweden and were pushed out north by Germanic peoples. There are also Sami-like place names that have been identified in Arkhangelsk region of Russia. Anyway, speaking of Lapland, it has become split between Sweden, Norway and Russia in the 15th century. Charles IX of Sweden did a great disservice to the Sami culture by forbidding their ways of life such as drumming and pagan sacrifice, and thus Swedified them. In the 19th century, Russia seized Finland and much of Lapland. Interestingly, if we go by historical inhabitants of Sweden and Norway, then Sweden had a much larger Sami presence. However, in modernity, Norway has much more people that identify as Sami. This is because the Sami were repressed in Sweden and chose to Swedify themselves, that is, blend in and intermarry with Swedes.